Hello everyone. So in my presentation today, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the National Health Service is, for those of you who don't know. Is automation essential in a diagnostic lab? The benefits that it brings with automation. I'll then take you through a little bit of a sample journey from what it looks like in my lab. Does size matter when it comes to automation, and what else it helps us achieve? And also, finally ending on the future of automation and what's important to me as a lab manager. So an overview of the National Health Service. For those of you who are not aware, it was established in 1948, and the aim is that everybody is able to receive the healthcare and treatment that they require based on what they need rather than what they can afford. So it's quite a unique system from around the world, which provides people with that healthcare service. The idea in NHS Tayside is that everybody has the best care possible, and that is what everything comes back down to at the end of the day. In NHS Tayside, we have 3 main hospitals. So this is Ninewells, that's in Dundee. We have Perfroyle Infirmary, and we have Stracathro. But those 3 large hospitals then cater to around 60 different general practitioner surgeries, so they're very, very high throughput, and there's a lot of samples that we see every single day. In my hospital at Ninewells, we have blood sciences, which is constituted of immunology, chemistry, hematology, and biochemistry. And we also have bacteriology, genetics, and histopathology as well. In the hematology labs, we have around 40 biomedical scientists, and they're the people who are looking at the results, maintaining the analyzers, and in general, making sure that our patients get the best treatment and with regards to getting the samples out as quick and as high quality as possible. And we see around 650,000 samples annually, so it is a high throughput that we see. Is automation essential in an NHS lab? What do we think? Yeah? So I would say absolutely yes, and my opinion on this has changed from starting in the lab as a biomedical scientist to now being one of the managers. The reason for this is we always have staffing pressures in the NHS, we have budget restrictions, and we have a forever increase in workload. There are, of course, lots of other reasons why, but these are the contributing factors that we really need to work on. On the left-hand side here is a picture of our sample reception. This is the beginning of our sample journey, and that's where our samples are booked in, and they're placed on the tracking system, and they go where they need to go after that. Some of the benefits of automation all form around reduced manual intervention. I've listed a few of the things that I think are quite important. One of them is reduced repetitive tasks. So if you've ever worked in a lab that doesn't have a highly automated solution like we have, I certainly have worked in a smaller lab that doesn't have that, and you can be prone to repetitive strain injuries, it's also very laborious, time consuming, and we're not actually spending the time that we need to spend on looking at the results. Repeatability of results, so the more accurate and reproducible results that can be produced from the analyzers is really, really important. I would much rather that a sample took 1 minute longer to process if it meant that I wasn't going to be looking at obscure flags that don't mean anything. So really, the quality and the repeatability of results is what's important to me. Customizable workflow. So I'm very fortunate to be in a lab which actually has a fully automated track system, and we can choose which samples we want to be routed to go where. It is actually a Siemens track that we have, and what it does is, if we have incidents that are related to samples not being processed accurately, or within time frames and stuff, we can change up those pathways to make sure that they go where they need to go in a timely fashion. With the reduced manual intervention, we've also got increased professional judgment and scientific expertise that we can use. Like, that's why we went to university. That's what we want to spend our time doing a lot of the time. And it means that with the workflows taken care of and the automation, we can spend that time doing those things. The 3 things at the bottom here that are in blue, achieve a turnaround time. So these are sort of some of the main responsibilities I have. So we're always looking to achieve a turnaround time. The lab, as you know, feeds into the whole hospital. So if results are held up, that means that patients can't be moved, they can't be treated as they need to be. The lab is a massive part in the healthcare system. So it's really important that we use automation to make that happen. Maintain a laboratory accreditation, so we are UCAS accredited lab, and that means that we have to spend a lot of time focusing on making sure our records are correct, our quality management system, our audits and everything are as they should be. And with having automation, we wouldn't be able to do all those things without it, to be honest. And the more automated it becomes, it changed, my opinion on this has changed over the years, is that actually it just allows us to focus more on the stuff that we need to be focusing on. And then there's also to comply with health and safety regulations. So the more automated things are, we don't have, that manual intervention. As analysers go through their versions, we then have less maintenance and things like that, where there's opportunity to get sort of like pricks from the analyser or anything like that. So a sample journey in NHS Tayside looks like this. So on the left-hand side picture, we have the sample input-output module, and we can do all sorts, so we can put all sorts of samples on, whether they're booked in already or if they're capped, unspun, spun, uncapped, everything. It's really, really customizable, and it's really useful actually. We put our samples on when they're booked in from reception, and the track system knows where it needs to go based on reading the barcode. And it has at every point little gates, and they tell the tracking system where it needs to go. So whether it's got to be centrifuged, if it's a biochemistry sample, whether it needs to go to an analyser to be analysed for its full blood count, or if it needs to be aliquoted to go to a reference lab, or in my situation, we have multiple specialist labs as well. And quite often we need samples. We share the same samples so that they can go to different parts of the lab. And finally, on the right-hand side, we have the storage module. So that's where our storage of samples are kept. They're kept in there for around 3 days, and we now have 2 of them in our lab. And this also means that whenever we do need the sample, we can just retrieve it via an automated computer system, and the sample comes out. And it'll also know whether it needs a test to be done, so it'll just go to the appropriate analyser, which is fantastic in an NHS lab. Does size matter? This is the big question. Does it matter if you have a small or big lab? Should you have less automation if you work in a small lab? What do you guys think? No? Okay. I would say that having worked in a small lab and not having as much an automated solution, you definitely benefit from having one. So in small labs, you tend to be multidisciplinary. Our smaller site in Perth, we have blood transfusion, chemistry and hematology, and there's only one biomedical scientist out of ours. So just one of the situations I had one year was, it was Boxing Day. I remember it was very, very busy, and we had a massive hemorrhage call. At the same time, I was being paged for samples, people having heart attacks, cardiac arrests, and they were asking for their troponin results. So if I had had the same solution that I have at Ninewells Hospital, I could have booked the samples in, put them on the track, and it would have been taken care of, and the only thing I really would have had to have done was the authorisation at the end of the sample journey. However, instead what happened was I had porters waiting on the blood products, and I had loads of pages from the staff waiting for that, and I think it just adds on extra pressure unnecessarily. So I would say that no, it doesn't matter if you have a small lab. It's still very, very important. Then you might argue a big lab then, if you have more staff, you have higher throughput, you've got more analysers, do you really need an automated solution as large as that? I would say yes, because it's relative. You don't get anything extra in the NHS, so the staff that you have is absolutely the staff that you need. If not, you would need more. And therefore, those staff are busy working on the blood film. They're looking at blood films, they're maintaining the analysers, or they're maintaining our quality management system, which we have to be accredited to. We also have specialist sections, so they are a lot more hands-on and a lot less automated. But we have our track system which can appropriately track the samples to where they need to go in an appropriate time frame. Some of the things that automation helps us achieve is our blood film review. So we have an automated stain maker. It makes the blood films and it also stains them as well. And that means that we don't have to spend time doing that. That is a very manual task. When you're doing hundreds and hundreds per day. So we're very grateful to have that. So that's one of the things that helps us do. Again, automation and film review is a very time-consuming process, which takes quite a lot of time for people to become experts in. So again, having automation and hopefully in the future for us, some form of digital morphology, even more beneficial in an NHS lab. We have turnaround times to adhere to, and we're able to achieve around 95% of these, even more, but that's kind of the bare minimum that we managed to achieve. And we wouldn't be able to achieve this without automation. So that's what we're very grateful for. And again, coming back to that lab accreditation and health and safety compliance, the reason we're able to do that is because we have extra time, given that we're not doing these manual processes, such as taking caps off of samples and manually aliquoting them. And that is it comes back to that, the best patient care possible. We need to have our accreditation, make sure our processes are the highest quality and the highest service that we provide. And that's why automation is great. So the future for me is probably slightly different to some of these guys who are working on these innovative solutions, is actually some of the bugbears of being a manager in the NHS is trying to ensure that we can have seamless integration of compliant record keeping. So the idea that if we have two suppliers who provide us with a solution, say the coag and the full blood count analyzers for different suppliers, how do we get the same information off of those to make sure that we're still maintaining our accreditation? The thing is that no matter what, we still have to provide that information. So if there was a solution that could be provided to make that happen, that would be great. It would be less paperwork, less trying to think outside of the box to try and still maintain all the things we need to maintain. And also a configured and operational artificial intelligence system, for example, blood film reporting with remote access. So at the minute, the challenge for us is things that are NHS budget friendly. In the future, I believe this is the way forward. I think it would save a lot of time, and I think it would be really beneficial to be able to have consultants access their morphology from home. This saves them having to take a trip into the lab, especially when they're under pressure and under-resourced as well. And I think for training new staff, that would be great, as you can build up a portfolio of training material and hopefully not miss any of the important features that we need to be picking up on. So to summarise, automation is absolutely essential in an NHS lab. We have the budget constraints, we have staffing pressures, and we have this constant demand to meet turnaround times. And then again, we have the accreditation and the health and safety requirements that we have to meet. There are lots of benefits, which mean we can produce a higher quality service and more time for professional judgment and scientific expertise. Size does not matter. Both big and small labs can benefit from automation and customisable workflows. And the future of automation is exciting, but it does need to be accessible to an NHS diagnostic lab, from my point of view. Thank you very much for listening.